Welcome back to the Hardware Unboxed News Corner, our second episode for this week, coming to you on this fine Sunday afternoon. A couple of interesting topics to discuss this week, but first, today's video has been sponsored by ASRock and their new Phantom Gaming range of Z390 motherboards. The Z390 Phantom Gaming 6 and 9 include a blazing fast 2.5 gigabits per second network interface, offering gamers and content creators 2.5 times the bandwidth compared to the standard gigabit Ethernet. For more information, please check the link in the video description. So for the first topic in today's episode, I wanted to return to the discussion of dead or dying NVIDIA RTX cards, which we covered as our main story in News Corner earlier in the week. We don't have a ton of new information to go over, but we are seeing more reports of failures and issues relating to RTX cards since this news broke. So it seems like, I guess, more people are coming forward to report issues now that they know their problems perhaps weren't an unlucky one-off. As we mentioned earlier, the general trend to these issues appears to be at least somewhat related to the Founders Edition PCB, as pretty much every failed card has either been a Founders Edition model directly from NVIDIA or a board partner card that uses the Founders Edition PCB design. AIB cards that use a custom PCB, and that's most AIB cards, seem to be unaffected. I still want to stress though that while the Founders Edition PCB appears to be correlated to the failures, we still aren't sure what is exactly causing the problems. There is a report from Tom's Hardware suggesting GDDR6 temperatures are exceeding the 95 degrees Celsius safe operating limit set by manufacturer Micron, potentially due to the Founders Edition cooler design and the layout of the PCB that sees VRM power tracks run directly under some GDDR6 modules. We've also heard about a potential GDDR6 binning issue with an earlier batch of RTX cards that has been resolved with newer production runs. And we've also heard some reports that some users can get their cards working through underclocking the memory, though this trick it doesn't appear to be working for everyone. But the theme at this stage is that they are just reports. There's nothing concrete linking one specific problem to the failures. So with that in mind, we actually want to point you all to Gamers Nexus, because currently Longhaired Steve and his crew over there are trying to get a collection of failed RTX cards on hand to try and isolate the specific issue. The guys over there do a great job with these sorts of investigations, so we're going to leave this one to them and wait for their findings, because they'll get a definitive answer to this whole mess. Crucially though, if any of you guys do have a failed RTX card that you haven't sent back through an RMA process yet, we encourage you to get in touch with Gamers Nexus and arrange for them to borrow the card so they can get to the bottom of this. The more dead cards they have on hand, the easier it will be to isolate the problem. They've set up an email address for people to use to get in contact with them. That email is dead2080ti@gamersnexus.net, and they're asking you to provide information on your failed card, what it's doing, and what country you live in. We also have links in the description below to their Reddit thread and news post about their investigation, so check that out for any further information, and we'll leave it over to the guys at Gamers Nexus to get back to us on what is exactly causing all these failed cards. Our second major topic for this week involves NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1080 Ti stock. As you might know, we follow graphics card stock and pricing closely for our series that covers the best value GPUs on the market. And we noticed a few troubling signs relating to the 1080 Ti earlier this week. And I think Gamers Nexus also found something similar in their latest news episode. Anyway, the main story here is that the GTX 1080 Ti stock, well, it's nearly all gone and it's not coming back. With the RTX 2080 in town effectively replacing the 1080 Ti, NVIDIA has ended production for the flagship consumer Pascal part. So once the final batch of cards has been sold, that's it. I guess it was always going to happen once Turing was released. It was only a matter of how long before 1080 Ti's would run out, and it appears we're now reaching that point. If you browse popular retailers like Newegg and Amazon, there are far fewer 1080 Ti cards available to purchase now than there were a couple of weeks ago. Pricing has also increased drastically. In mid-October, cards were available for as low as $700 US. Now the cheapest card is a Gigabyte Aorus model for $760, and the next cheapest card is nearly $800, with several other cards selling for around the $1,000 mark. And here in Australia, at our favorite retailer PC Case Gear, there is only one 1080 Ti model still in stock. Once these cards sell out, the 1080 Ti will no longer be available to buy new from retailers. And that's really bad news for gamers who are after a high-end GPU, because the RTX 2080 that is replacing the 1080 Ti is currently still selling for around $800, which is $100 more than the 1080 Ti was selling for. And in our review, we found that the 2080 was only 1% faster than the 1080 Ti in a 35 game average at 1440p and 4K. So once the remaining 1080 Ti's sell out, gamers will basically have to spend $100 more to get the exact same performance that was available for a lower price with a previous generation product. So that's pretty painful. But it's really not surprising that the 1080 Ti's have sold out quickly and won't be replenished. Nvidia was essentially competing with themselves. They released the 2080 onto the market at a higher price, and it just wasn't as attractive to buy up against Nvidia's own 1080 Ti. So it's no surprise that buyers flocked to the 1080 Ti instead. Going forward, it makes sense that Nvidia would focus on their newer RTX cards rather than trying to sell, Turing and Pascal at the same price points. In better news for gamers, Nvidia's other Pascal cards are still in plentiful stock, so you can still buy a GTX 1080 for around $440, making it a better option than the RTX 2070 at around $500. While the 2070 is 7% faster than the 1080, it's 14% more expensive in a best case scenario. Though, like the GTX 1080 Ti, we expect GTX 1080 stock will run out at some point, and buyers will only be left with the worst value 2070 as the only option at some point in the future. AMD is set to host an event dubbed Next Horizon in just a few days on November 6th. The event was posted on their investor relations website and was mentioned in their earnings call as well, though details are still a little light on at this stage. The company is only stating at this point that the event will cover innovation of AMD products and technology, specifically designed with a data center on industry-leading 7nm process technology. This fits with what we've been hearing about AMD's upcoming event. It's more focused on the enterprise and data center side of their business, so we can expect to hear about their first 7nm products, including second generation EPYC CPUs and 7nm Vega GPUs. I wouldn't be expecting too much on the consumer side. AMD is planning to use their CES event to discuss 7nm as well in early 2019, and will almost certainly focus on consumer products like 3rd Gen Ryzen at that event. What's unclear is whether Next Horizons will be used to unveil the RX 590, which has been the subject of a ton of rumors over the past couple of weeks. Considering the focus on enterprise and data center, launching a mid-range consumer GPU at the event, well, it wouldn't really fit in with the rest of the content, but who knows what AMD will be covering. It's probably an event to keep your eye on though if you are interested in the RX 590, just in case they sneak it in there somewhere. Battlefield 5's system requirements have been unveiled, which I guess it isn't normally news that is interesting enough to put in News Corner, but unlike with other games, Battlefield 5 implements DirectX ray tracing and supports Nvidia's RTX technology, so DICE has listed requirements specifically for DXR. This is the first time we're hearing directly from a game developer about what hardware is actually required to run ray tracing in their game. So Battlefield 5 requires an Nvidia GeForce RTX 2070 or higher to run DXR, which I guess it shouldn't come as a surprise as that's the lowest tier card that supports DirectX ray tracing. There's no word on what level of ray tracing the RTX 2070 will enable, because presumably there will be, several different levels of ray tracing that will be usable depending on which RTX card you have. But at least RTX 2070 owners will be able to use ray tracing in this game, just at an unknown quality level. What is a little surprising is the other system requirements for DXR. DICE lists either a Ryzen 7 2700 or Intel Core i7 8700 as a required CPU, which is much higher than the Ryzen 3 1300X or Intel Core i7 4790 they list as recommended for their game. They also list 16GB of RAM for DXR, up from 12GB in the recommended specs. And of course, you need the Windows 10 October 2018 update version 1809 to support DXR. That said, DICE didn't say what sort of resolution or frame rate they are targeting for their DXR recommended requirements. But considering what developers usually target, which is 1080p 60fps, we're looking at needing a high-end PC to get DXR running at a modest resolution. Again, probably not a surprise considering what we saw from RTX demos earlier this year. Fallout 76 is looking like another typical Bethesda Game Studios title on PC, and that is, of course, a complete mess. Apparently, the game still ties physics simulations to the frame rate, a major flaw of the terrible creation engine the game uses. But to make matters worse, this is a multiplayer-only title, so when someone runs the game with an unlocked frame rate, they will move much faster than everyone else in the game world. Running with an unlocked frame rate during the beta was as easy as modifying formatting an ini file to remove the frame cap. It's actually amazing to me that this issue was present in the Fallout 76 beta, considering that this was a known issue with past Bethesda games like Fallout 4. This really should have been fixed well before the beta was released, but at least having a beta period has allowed users to report the problem so they can fix it ahead of the full release in a few weeks. That is, of course, if Bethesda can even fix the problem before then. It seems like a fundamental issue with the game engine and may be very complicated to fix. And if they don't fix it, the game will be a complete disaster on PC, with some players zooming around the map much faster than others. Other issues with Fallout 76 at the moment include a complete lack of 21:9 aspect ratio support, another issue that was present with Fallout 4 and has gone unfixed since then, and apparently the optimization of the game at the moment is rather terrible. So I guess Steve and I are certainly going to have fun testing this game in a few weeks. It sounds just fantastic. Corsair has launched 2 new liquid coolers in their Hydro series, the H100i Platinum and H115i Platinum. The main changes here compared to the H115i and H100i Pro RGB models are, well, more RGB lighting. The fans are now upgraded to use Corsair's ML120 or ML140 RGB models, which have RGB lighting, of course, while the pump head now has a ring of 16 addressable RGB lights as well. The H100i Platinum costs $160, so that's $40 more than the H100i Pro RGB, while the H115i Platinum is $170, up $30 from the H115i Pro RGB. Final topic of this week, Destiny 2 is currently free to permanently keep if you download it before November 18 through Battle.net on PC. Yep, that's right. All you have to do is log into your Battle.net account and download Destiny 2 before that date, and you can keep the game linked to your account forever. The game's DLC isn't included with this offer, but hey, it's still a pretty great deal if you haven't played the game and want to give it a try. That's it for this week's News Corner. Subscribe to catch this segment in your inbox every week and hit that bell icon so YouTube delivers it to you properly. Consider supporting us on Patreon to get access to our exclusive Discord chat and monthly live streams, and we'll catch you in the next one.